Where's Kyle? Kyle, where are you? There we go.
Yeah.
Avoid the flowers again.
Yeah, you're gonna try that.
There's the flowers.
8. There we go.
All right, this is about the evolution of deregulation in the electric power industry. Now, most everyone is familiar with Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Edison and their contributions to electricity. But where are we today with power? How does it work as a business? In order to understand that, we have to go back to the beginning of when it became a business. Now, after Edison made some of the first working power plants, electricity still needed to become a successful business. A lot of that credit can be given to a man named Samuel Insull. He found that the power industry worked best as a monopoly. If you guys have ever seen old pictures from the 1800s, late 1800s, you'd see tons of power lines going through the streets of New York City, going from separate generators, separate companies. Under monopoly, you just need one line. Also, the setup costs are really high with all those lines. You'd save a lot by just having one. So having power companies that own all the generators, all the power lines, all the assets. These guys are known as vertically integrated companies. They're monopolies. Now, because they run most efficiently as a monopoly, the government allowed them. But monopolies, as we all know, are monsters. So what do they do about it? Well, they started back in 1935 with the Public Utility Holding Company Act of 1935. Now, back then, the companies could act much like Bonnie and Clyde, where Bonnie and Clyde would commit a crime in one state and cross the lines into another because jurisdiction did not cross over. In the same way, a company could have its offices and be incorporated in one state, but do some business in another, and they would not be held responsible. So PUCA, or the Public Utility Holding Act of 1935, said that they had to be incorporated in the state in which they did their business. It stopped that dead in its tracks. Sometime after that, you wind up with the DOE in 1977, the Department of Energy. And within the Department of Energy, you get the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC. Now, they are important because they started putting the first big cracks into the monopolies. And this all began in the 1970s with the energy crisis. Now, monopolies are not very innovative. They could be efficient, but they're not innovative. And we had an energy crisis. Now, there is something known as cogeneration, where any sort of company that has waste heat can use that to create energy. All you have to do is add water, which makes steam, and connect a turbine to it, and you can have electricity. However, these little companies, be they water desalination or garbage burning, did not have access to power lines. That all belonged to the vertically integrated companies, the monopolies, who weren't going to share. So the government stepped in and said they had to share. If the independent power producers, as these little companies were known, could sell the power to the utilities cheaper, the utilities had to buy it. And this was all to help save energy back in the 70s. After that, the next big crack in the monopolies was the Energy Policy Act of 1992. Now you had the independent power producers from the 1970s. Now you also have the exempt wholesale generators. Now these people just don't have waste heat. They actually have generators, but no transmission lines. And they're not restricted to PUCA like many of the other utilities are. They don't own the lines, but they can send power from here to there on lines that other people own. Now, this was brought even further in the Energy Policy Act of 2005. It completely got rid of PUCA and PURPA. And what that does is it allows you to buy power in one part of the country and send it all the way to the other. How do you regulate all of that? Well, the way you do that is you split it into two halves. You have the reliability half, and you have the market half. Now, the reliability half consists of what you would traditionally think of as a power company. It has the lines, the generation, the distribution stations, all of that. The market functions are a little different. That runs like Wall Street. They put bids on power and treat it like a commodity, like anything else, concentrated frozen orange juice, if you will. Now, the important thing to keep in mind, though, is that you have to have a separation between the market and the reliability. The right hand and the left hand cannot know what each other are doing. If there is going to be work done on the power lines, the reliability side cannot let the market side know this. That would be insider trading, and that's very illegal, as we all know. So, what are some of the results from all this? Well, some of the negative ones are you have companies taking advantage of the system. One of the most famous cases would be with Enron, who took California for almost all they were worth. California is roughly $40 billion in the hole because of them. They would buy power from California, a lot of it, and then sell it all back to California at a much higher price, or they would convince the generating stations in California not to make power. And then they would sell power from outside of California to California for ridiculous prices. And this brought lots of attention to Enron, and it led to their eventual downfall. Also, you had the Montana Power Company, which was a utility within the state of Montana, and it wanted to reinvent itself as Touch America, which was a telecommunications company. But in order to sell all of its assets, they had to convince the state legislature to have open markets. And they did so. And once they did that, they sold all of their generation, which was really good stuff. It was the cheap hydro generation. And unfortunately, it was all bought up by other states, specifically companies within Pennsylvania. So now Pennsylvania is getting cheap hydropower from Montana. And where does that leave the citizens of Montana? They have to get their power from somewhere else. And their prices have doubled, tripled, and quadrupled and gone even higher. And it's been a very unfortunate and sad story for them. Touch America failed. Unfortunately for them, power fiber optic lines are really cheap, are really expensive, and there's just not enough traffic on them in order to make it marketable, and they went under. Some positive results from this, though, are that you have increased competition. This can lower prices. It's slowly happening, and it's increasing more. Another result is that green power is now marketable. Like I mentioned before, monopolies are not very innovative because they own everything and there's no need for change. Now that there's competition, anything that's possible will probably be tried. And green power now has a market out there, and it's starting to slowly become successful, which is a great thing. So where are we today now? Well, today, power can be bought in one place and sold all the way in another. And what this leaves us is, depending upon where you live, you can choose who you get your power from, just like you would car insurance. And with the ability to shop around, this makes prices competitive, and prices for power are slowly getting cheaper. Thank you guys for listening, and enjoy the ice cream.